All right, now moving on to one of the more interesting teams in the league. Not much in the offseason, mainly just complaining about a call. Can you guess what team that is?
Is it a team in the South, a team that most Vikings fans aren't a big fan of, and didn't cry at all when they got a bad call?
Yeah, you're correct.
The New Orleans Saints.
Yep.
Yeah, you're right. They did have a very quiet offseason and a very quiet draft, too. They only had, 5 picks in the draft, no first-round option. Picking up, pretty, I think, average picks. Nothing jumps at me as being really, really incredible. Alignment is good to have with Eric McCoy as their top pick at 48. But this team is Drew Brees, and their offense obviously last year was unreal, but their defense was, I don't know, where were they? I don't know if they were on the field. They had so many shootouts where it was 45-48, and that's not the key to winning in the NFL. And that's why it comes down to a blown call when you could have just played, 3 more seconds of defense. So, in my opinion, I think this offense is going to continue to be really, really explosive. Alvin Kamara's not going anywhere. Michael Thomas is an all-pro wide receiver. He's going to continue to produce. And Drew Brees is going to play till he's 45 probably. And Taysom Hill is a weird threat at every position, I think. And so this offense is a lot to be very happy about if you're a Saints fan. But defensively, there has to be improvement. And since there wasn't a lot of turnover, it's going to have to be through good coaching and just pure growth from these players.
Yeah, I'd have to agree. They do have one playmaker on defense, the defensive end. I'm trying to think of his name. But yeah, their offense is incredible. They picked up Latavius Murray, of course.
Yeah, Cameron Jordan, definitely
yes.
a great option at defensive end. Marshawn Lattimore was good as a young player, rookie at cornerback, but going to need to see more.
Yeah, I agree. And in a pretty good NFC South, what are you thinking?
I think this team wins enough shootouts again this year to be pretty solidly towards the top of this division. I think probably 10, 11 wins. I think they don't quite get away with as many as they did last year at 13-3. I think they regress a little bit unless someone surprises me defensively. When your best cornerbacks are still getting footballs caught over their heads by Adam Thielen, it's going to still be tough.
I certainly agree. And, I'm sorry, I just have to go back to the Miami Dolphins. The Christian Wilkins pick out of Clemson might be my favorite pick in the draft by the Dolphins. So, fair play to them. Now moving on to our next team. We're getting down there. How you feeling?
Pretty good. I just love talking NFL, and now it's going to be a long couple of months, but we get to watch practices, we get to watch off-season training and stuff like that. Woohoo! But I can't wait for football to be back.
Certainly, and I don't know if you can sense the sadness in my voice, but we have the New England Patriots to talk about.
I'm sure you will love to talk about them.
Yeah, my favorite. We got Tom Brady. I feel like I've said that for the last 20 years. James White as their running back, solid option there. Picked up Damian Harris from Alabama. Not too many carries at Alabama, but I'm excited to see what he can do in the NFL. They have Edelman, of course, and they just picked up Demaryius Thomas. The rich keep getting richer. They have the McCourties on defense. The one problem that I have is they lost Trey Flowers to the Seattle Seahawks and did nothing to fix their pass rush. They also lost Rob Gronkowski, did nothing to fix their tight end situation in the draft. They got a really good player, N'Keal Harry, out of Arizona State, to help their wide receiving core. But Yeah, they don't have a single qualified tight end on their roster, if I may say that right now. So I'm not sure what they're going to do there or pass rushing, but that might be an issue that might cause them to regress.
Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised to see it. I think people have a lot of confidence in Bill Belichick to just walk into some big guy on the street and say, "Hey, can you come play football for us?" and have him succeed. But this might be the year that we start to see some decline.
I mean, I did say that 2 years ago, but the signs are ever increasing. Um, yeah, that's right. I mean, what are you going to do for a tight end now? Pick one up if somebody gets released? I'm not sure. I'm not sure what you do there. But, I think you can get a solid D end that way, but you can't replace Gronk that way.
No, I agree. And I think actually it's going to have a bigger effect on their offense than anyone maybe even expects, just because of the it factor of Gronk and how opposing defenses had to play around him. I think there's going to be a adjustment period that's going to take a little bit of time where, the Patriots have been characteristically a little bit of a later season team. And I think that stretch where they're a little bit on the weaker side and could be vulnerable to worse teams than should probably beat them, may actually beat them later into the season than we are used to seeing.
Yeah. And, I mean, you can't take away Gronkowski's blocking ability. The reason that they've been able to do those stupid Tom Brady holds it for 4 seconds, tosses it -3 yards to the running back, and the running back goes for 20. They just constantly do that. I'm not sure if you can do that without Gronk. And, they might have to change the way they're playing, which, it's Tom Brady. He's done the same thing for 17 years. Can he do that? I'm not sure. So I certainly think they're a Super Bowl contender because you have to put them there or else they're going to kill you. But I'd have to say I'm thinking 11-5.
Same record as last year, but potentially in a stronger AFC?
Yes. I don't think they'll be getting home field advantage in the playoffs, which has killed everyone else lately. But the AFC East is still the AFC East. Dolphins, Bills, Jets. Maybe the Jets beat them once this year, but other than that, well, the Dolphins normally beat them once a year. So this could be interesting. But Patriots, I think they've regressed. Now on to the next team. Ooh, one of the more interesting teams, the Baltimore Ravens. I can't lie, I'm pretty excited to see this team. At the beginning of the offseason, I thought everything was going downhill. They lost Terrell Suggs and Eric Weddle. I wasn't sure what was going on because they signed Mark Ingram from the Saints, and I was just like, oh, they're going to be a good team. They lost those 2 defensive players. Oh, they're going to be a bad team now. Then they pick up Earl Thomas from Seattle. Oh, okay, they're going to be a good team again. Lamar Jackson, Heisman Trophy winner, Marquise Brown, their pick out of Oklahoma, is a solid player. And Mark Ingram, really good pickup. I mean, he solves their running back by committee problem that they had last year with about 4 running backs. They have a decent offensive line. If they play well and this defense makes up for Terrell Suggs and C.J. Mosley, I think that, they win the AFC North. I think this team is capable of being 12-4. Last year, you look at what happened. They didn't have much wide receiver play, and now Lamar Jackson has Marquise Hollywood Brown. Dang, that's going to be exciting. So I certainly think this team makes the playoffs for sure. They're certainly in the playoff hunt, for sure a wild card. Maybe win the division. Who knows? It's a race versus the Browns and Steelers.
Yeah, I think Lamar Jackson is a really, really talented player, a dual threat quarterback, obviously, rusher and a passer. And I'm really excited to see what they're able to do with Mark Ingram in the mix, like you mentioned. I think that's a great piece to the offense to build around. And I think the only thing to worry about potentially with Lamar is he did have 12 fumbles on the year last year. Ball security is a must if you're going to be a really big scrambling quarterback. And So with that said, though, they are in a division where there's a lot of potential to succeed if the Browns don't get going with a lot of steam.
Correct. And one thing I just want to say real quickly. Imagine if the Titans used Marcus Mariota like the Baltimore Ravens use Lamar Jackson. Everybody be afraid.
Yep, I think that would be the prime way to use Marcus, for sure.
And that's where I was going with, he's had to adapt to their system, and they didn't adapt to him. So, we mix up the teams a little bit, and Miles, pre-show we were talking about this team as one of the potential improvements. The San Francisco 49ers obviously struggled with a lot of injuries last year. What are you thinking for them?
Yeah, I think injuries were their biggest opponent last year, not to anyone that they played actually on the field. Obviously, when your primetime player, Joey Garoppolo, goes down after being a big offseason pickup, you're always going to be upset about that. But he's had, close to a full year of recovery. He's going to be, I think, ready to roll. I think he continues to be potentially one of the best younger quarterbacks in the league. A knee injury is a knee injury, but it doesn't hurt his arm. He's been able to continue to throw and keep that form in motion. And number 2 pick in the draft, Nick Bosa, I think just like his big brother, he's going to be a huge defensive threat. And that is probably the best pickup they could have made at 2. And so seeing that and seeing the pieces they already have around Garoppolo on offense and then around Bosa on defense, there's a lot of hope for 49er fans to be competitive in a really strong division. I think that they will probably beat the Cardinals twice. I think they can have the potential to split their series with the Rams and the Hawks. And this team has a ceiling that's probably close to 12 wins, in my opinion.
I certainly agree with you. They have a lot of strong players. Marquise Goodwin is certainly capable to fill that wide receiver 1 role. They picked up Dee Ford, Tevin Coleman. They have Kittle at tight end, who's solid. DeForest Buckner on the D-line. Matt Breida and Jerick McKinnon could form a 1-2 punch. Obviously, McKinnon with his injury last year was harsh, but Eric Armstead on the D-line and Quan Alexander as well were both incredible pickups.
Absolutely, and don't forget about Kyle Juszczyk, the fullback.
Yes.
He plays almost like another tight end in their offense, and George Kittle was a monster even with whoever they had at quarterback any given day of the week.
Yep.
So they have pieces around Garoppolo that I think they have the best plus minus in terms of win-loss from
sure.
last season of anyone in the NFL. They can go from last to first.
For sure. And I'm curious, are they a Super Bowl contender, or are you more seeing them as a wild card team that has to, play well in the playoffs to make a run?
I think to say they're a Super Bowl contender is probably a little bit on the side of Kool-Aid. That's probably a very Bay Area type of take, but for me, I think they are on the wild card edge, and then with the potential to do well in the playoffs. Beyond that, I think is potentially a little overestimating at this point.
Okay, yeah, I'd have to agree with you. Their division is insanely difficult. So I would say, something like 11-5. It would be pretty close.
I would agree, and coming off of 4-12, that's about all you can ask for.
Very, very true. All right, and of course, moving on swiftly onwards. There are only a few. There are probably about 8 teams left, I'd say, and we move along to our capital city, Washington Redskins, who, might be in a rebuilding phase.
Yeah, I think that's probably true. I think they found a great pick in Dwayne Haskins, and he'll be, I think, pretty much ready to roll, especially with the void they pretty much are sitting with at the quarterback position. And Adrian Peterson continues to still somehow produce something, and I think he can be a good running back. I think his great days are long past him, especially since he's long past his expiration date of 30 years old as a running back. But I think that this team has has some hope. I don't think it's a lot of hope, but it is some hope.
Yeah, their defense is pretty weak. But one thing I want to say is that Alex Smith, of course, is injured. He might be back at some point this season. But the big one, Darius Geis, who had 2 incredible games to start off the 2018 season and then had a really bad injury. He could come back with flying colors and propel this team somewhere. But I'm not sure. Their wide receivers aren't great. I mean, of course, you have to mention Jordan Reed at tight end.
Yep. He's been really good for them in the past, regardless of who's under center. And I think Josh Doxson will mature in his 4th year in the NFL. He was, pretty highly prized in his draft class and kind of has been under the radar in terms of production. But I think he can produce with a unique talent like Dwayne Haskins.
Certainly. And to be completely honest, I'm not a fan of Dwayne Haskins. He has been spoiled by riches at Ohio State with a great offensive line, Mike Weber, Paris Campbell, and a host of wide receivers who are incredible. I'm not sure. I'm not sure about Dwayne Haskins, to be completely honest. This might be my cold take, but I'm not the biggest fan, to say the least. But
I can see it. I think their pickup of Eric Flowers, though, is a boon for him. I think that'll help him to stay protected. And Landon Collins is a big pickup off the Giants in the secondary. So I like what they have. And we'll see what they can do.
Yeah, I think, at this point, you hope for a mid-round pick where you can take a really good defensive player and then you're in business for next year. All right, we're getting down there. And we have the Pittsburgh Steelers. Okay. Probably the biggest carousel of off-season this year, other than New York. A lot of things happened with them, losing Le'Veon Bell and Antonio Brown. But they have, when I was just writing down good players, they have a host of good players. Ben Roethlisberger, James Conner with Benny Snell could be one of the best 1-2 pairings in the NFL. Juju Smith-Schuster is an incredible receiver. Can't be understated. I used to think he was a little overrated just because Antonio Brown was with him, but he's proven me wrong that he can definitely do him by himself. They just drafted Devin Bush, who is a quality linebacker to replace Ryan Shazier, and Shazier might even be back at some point this season, I've heard, so far, with his almost paralysis.
Yeah, his recovery has been really an incredible story in the NFL, and I think if he steps on the field, he wins Comeback Player of the Year.
Of course.
If he takes one snap.
Oh, of course. Vance McDonald at tight end is a solid player. They have that position covered. They have a decent offensive line to give Ben some time. Their offense could be pretty good. The one thing I'm worried about is defense. defense. The main player in their secondary is Joe Hayden. As far as rushing the passer, they don't have their James Harrison anymore. They're lacking a little bit in that position. But for them to get success, we need better wide receiver 2 and 3 play for Ben to throw to. Devin Bush needs to win Rookie of the Year for them to be successful. And if their O-line plays well, I think they have a shot at making the playoffs. I think they're close. If they can prove me wrong and their defense shows up to some games, maybe they go 9-7, 8-8.
Yeah, I think 8-8 is my personal top end for them. If they make the wild card, it's going to be because of someone else squeaking behind them because of some weird tiebreaker scenario.
Okay.
I think they're in full on rebuild. I think this could be potentially the end of an era for the Steelers in terms of Roethlisberger's prime and also their coaching staff. I think there's potential to see turnover there for the first time in close to 20 years almost.
Okay. Yeah. This might be Mike Tomlin and Ben Roethlisberger's last year in the league. Obviously, I mean, this is a pretty insane coaching tree. You have Chuck Noll, who wins 4 Super Bowls. Then the first coach you hire is flipping Bill Cowher, of course. He wins 2. And then he won 1. And then you got Mike Tomlin, who won 1. That's a pretty insane coaching tree for about 50 years of time.
Yep.
So to see that end really would be an end of an era, for sure. But I do like their pickup of Devin Bush at 10. That's a nice player who's going to give them some quality minutes and is going to make an impact. All right, and now on to one of the more good teams that nobody's talking about, the Jacksonville Jaguars. Obviously, 2 seasons ago, they went 13-3, winning some tough games with Blake Bortles under center. Now they got that fixed, though. They got Nick Foles now. And, one of my worries is their offensive chemistry with the new quarterback. I keep saying this over and over. New quarterbacks, sometimes they have success, sometimes they don't. It just depends on the system. When Nick Foles has gone elsewhere to try and start, didn't work. He went to St. Louis after Philly cut him the first time, or they traded him, and that was awful. Then he went back to Philadelphia. It worked. Now he's going to the Jaguars. Will it work? I have no idea. They have a good running back in Leonard Fournette, and honestly, Marquise Lee and Dede Westbrook are great wide receivers. You look at some of the names on this team, I could hardly fit it on my paper. Jalen Ramsey, A.J. Boye, Calais Campbell on defense. Those are solid players. And, they got a really good player in the draft this year with their number 7 pick. They got Josh Allen out of Kentucky, who could possibly be the best player in the draft. I know I said that already with Devin White, but he could be the best player in the draft. But I think this team, nobody's talking about them, and they have such incredible talent level. Their defense is great. Their offense could be great if Nick Foles goes. They're a little weak at linebacker. Hopefully, the draft pick comes through with that. Their O-line was a little weak last year. I'm not sure if that's because of injury or they're just not that great. So it remains to be seen what they can do. But right now I have them close to playoffs because obviously I'm a little worried about Nick Foles. I'm not sure if he's improved enough to be a starter. I think he really found success in Philly. I don't want to say through luck, but they did get kind of lucky to win that Super Bowl.
Right. You think it's maybe a top end for him, and his period of kind of mediocrity is more like what his natural kind of state is, and then sometimes he really finds the hot hand, so to speak, and kind of just rides it as long as it goes.
Yeah, I'd agree. I think he's not an elite quarterback. I don't think. But you know what? I don't think you need to be an elite quarterback to go far with this Jags team. Look what Blake Bortles did. And he's questionable, to say the least.
Yeah, I'd agree.
So for Nick Foles, if he even does okay, I think they might make the playoffs. I have them right now close to playoffs just because I'm a little... After seeing how they played last year, they kind of lost motivation. If they have a slow start, it might happen again. So this is a team where it could be 7-9, it could be 11-5. And that's a flip of a coin.
Yeah, we're gonna have to see where that ends up landing. Yeah,
for sure. All right, let's move on to the next team now. All right, we have the Chicago Bears.
Da Bears. All right. Talking about Chicago, obviously they had an incredible year last year under Matt Nagy. Everything that he did seemed to work no matter what it was. And Mitchell Trubisky has come into his own, absolutely. And they are clearly the top dog in the NFC North and the team that anyone in this division is going to have to push through if they want to try and make it anywhere far. I think I've liked what I've seen from Trubisky. He didn't get to play in every game. There was a couple games where Chase Daniel saw action and came in to relieve him. But a 3,200-yard, 24-touchdown season is nothing to sneeze at. And picking up, big plays with Tariq Cohen. I think he's their offensive star, especially after Jordan Howard is left now. Tariq Cohen's going to need to fill that void at running back in particular. But as a wide receiver, you can't count him out. And then we saw the trick plays. They can bring him in as a kind of weird quarterback situation as well. And looking towards the rest of that offense, Anthony Miller and Allen Robinson are solid. And then the best players on defense, Akeem Hicks, Khalil Mack, Kyle Fuller, Eddie Jackson, and then they signed HaHa Clinton Dix as well. I think this defense is easily the number one candidate to remain number one in the NFL on defense, and it's going to be tough to beat them. Leonard Floyd, option picked up on him as well, so he'll be continuing to stay. The Bears are one of the best, most complete teams in the NFL, even after Jordan Howard has left, and it's going to take a lot for most teams to beat them on any given Sunday.
Here's my take on this. They drafted David Montgomery in the 3rd round. Great value pick. He's pretty much Jordan Howard, to be completely honest. Riley Ridley has a good skill set to be a good wide receiver in the 4th round. They drafted him. But I think Mitchell Trubisky finds success because of the team around him. You looked at his play his first year. Maybe that's just because it's his first year. But he seems to play well when others play well. But my main problem with this team is they lost, I think, their second best player on defense in Adrian Amos. Now, they might have replaced him with HaHa Clinton Dix, but they also lost their defensive coordinator. He took the head coaching job in Denver, Vic Fangio. So a new defensive coordinator's coming in. You'd like to see them maintain success from last year, but when a new coordinator comes in, Matt Nagy isn't going to be calling defense for him. It's all on him. If he makes some mistakes, this team could definitely regress, especially with the NFC North teams all improving. I'm not sure if the Bears improved.
That's potentially true. I would say that you're probably right on that. They probably haven't improved necessarily in any particular way in the offseason. But I think when you return a defensive core like that, regardless of scheme, I think when you have playmakers like Khalil Mack on your defense, if you just unlock him and say, okay, you do what you're going to do, and then we'll work on the rest of these guys for scheme, that can single-handedly win you games. I mean, he definitely did it last year where he was a one-man wrecking crew, multiple forced fumbles, interceptions, and all kinds of other stuff in the same game. And that, that pickup last year can't be understated in terms of how totally unbelievable a front office move that was.
And I agree with you. Khalil Mack is a generational talent, for sure a Hall of Famer, I think. But also, they played a 4th-place schedule last year. They're playing a 1st-place schedule this year. They have a tough one. I thought the Vikings had a tough one with their, and they have a 2nd-place schedule. The Bears are playing some tough games this year, for sure. Lots of tough ones on the road. I think it's going to make a big difference for them. Because obviously Soldier Field is a very hard place to win at. But, if you just want to take a look at their schedule.
Yeah, they have a really tough stretch in the middle of the season. They go Vikings, Raiders, Saints, Chargers. That's a killer stretch. Saints and Chargers away. They're going to be seeing the Rams at the Rams. It's going to be a season. The Chiefs in primetime week 16. They're not going to have an easy road. They're going to have to prove it this year.
Yep.
That's for sure.
Yep. And yeah, certainly. So, amongst all this discussion, this is probably the first one we've actually probably disagreed on. Well, what are you going to say that
Because I think the NFC North is going to be less of a pushover this year, I think they end the season more towards 11-5, 10-6, and the winner of the NFC North is no better than 12-4. And if that, then that's going to be a really good year for whichever team gets there. I don't think it's the Lions, but I think the Vikings, Bears, and even the Packers have the chance to push for an 11-12 win season and take the North with that.
For sure. I was going to say somewhere around 10-6. So I would, for records, we were closer than what we were saying. But, yeah, I think, a wild card is probably about right for this team. That can definitely do damage in the playoffs. But yeah, moving onwards, I think we have five 5 or 6 left.
Yeah,
so
not too many.
Let's finish it off strong and get some lunch. And speaking of a fine meal, the Indianapolis Colts, who, after getting Andrew Luck back, having some success with Marlon Mack and Naheem Hines at running back, T.Y. Hilton continues to be a top wide receiver. Cannot be understated. The Colts having an O-line made such a difference. Quentin Nelson is an animal. He's just insane. Eric Ebron was a revolution at tight end. Gosh, I picked him up in fantasy. What can I say? He won me the championship single-handedly at tight end. Darius Leonard was the Rookie of the Year last year. Great player on defense. They have a few good players in their secondary. But, I'm a little worried about their pass rush. They picked Rock Ya-Sin out of Temple with their first pick in the draft. That was a nice play. They needed another cornerback. The Colts obviously play in the AFC South where there's lots of competition. And that offense is fine. No worries about that offense. The defense is a little bit of a concern, but, they played really well under Frank Reich last year. It was really fun to see what having an offensive line does for you.
Yeah,
after going from the most sacks in the league the previous year to the least.
For sure, yeah. Definitely proof that if you do invest in that offensive line and you don't even change a single player otherwise, you can see massive success. And so it's a really good sign for them that that was a good move and that it worked for them. And yeah, just seeing some more production on defense is what they're going to need to push to the next level and move past a wild card berth.
I think so. A wild card berth is about what I'm saying. I think on paper, them and the Texans, their offenses are pretty much equal. They're both insanely fun to watch, and I'm going to love this matchup when it happens twice this year. But I think the Texans just have a little bit better defense, which, proves critical when you have those late season games. So I'm going to say the Colts 10-6 in the wild card would be a pretty good season. Making the wild card twice under a new head coach is nothing to laugh at.
And every time Andrew Luck makes the playoffs, he seems to find some magic. So,
indeed, it's all about that Stanford brain. I can tell you that.
Big brain.
All right, I don't even know why I'm shaking this up anymore. There's like 4 in there. All right, we have the Los Angeles Rams.
All right, L.A. Yeah, clearly one of the top teams in the NFC, 13-3 last year, tied with the New Orleans Saints for best record in the NFL, and I think they're going to repeat that feat this year. I think with the Bears, as we said, kind of either stagnating or not really improving a huge amount. If both of them stagnate, I think the Rams are better. I think Jared Goff is a better quarterback purely than Mitchell Trubisky. As much as I praised him, I think you can heap even more praise on Goff and his ability to improve as time goes on. Todd Gurley is a monster in the backfield, all-pro. 1,250 yards on the ground with 17 rushing touchdowns, an unreal year, plus 580 yards in the air and another 4 touchdowns. That's a season to be extremely proud of, and I think he can repeat it. Offensively, they've also got Robert Woods and Brandon Cooks on the edges, and Cooper Kupp should be coming back from injury. So they're really going to be, once again, a monster threat in the NFC West and the NFC as a whole. The division runs through them, and I think the NFC runs through Los Angeles now as well. They have a defense too. They are incredible on defense. Corey Littleton, Aaron Donald, the defensive player of the year, and Ndamukong Suh, Marcus Peters. The list goes on. You can look halfway down their depth chart, and they've still got Aqib Talib and Sam Shields and Dante Fowler. Like, are you kidding me? These guys are really, really incredible, and this defense is going to be something to be feared. The NFC is built with some really heavy hitters.
Very true. My one concern for this team is their left tackle. Andrew Whitworth is extremely old. He's got to start slowing down at one point. I think he's 38. He had a good season last year. I'm not sure if he's going to be able to do it again. What happened with Todd Gurley in the playoffs, I'm not sure. But if something does happen, they certainly found a good running back in the draft in Henderson out of Memphis. Solid pickup for them. For what they needed, I think that was possibly the best pick in the draft for value. But they're a solid team. They got to be favorites to win the Super Bowl.
Yeah, I'd have them there. I think they're my top team out of the NFC, and anyone that I can think of out of the AFC feels like they're not quite as good in any particular area. Regardless of who it might be. I think if it's Chiefs and Rams, that's going to be a fun one. They had that barn burner last year, 50 points apiece, and I think it would be potentially a little bit closer game than that this time around, especially if it was a Super Bowl context. But man, that would be a fun one. It really, really would be. And not to mention they have Greg the Legatron himself, Zerline, and sometimes games really come down to who can kick the ball better, and having a talent like that is huge for them as well.
Very true, very true. NFC Championship game, of course, proved that who can kick the best, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
All right, we have 3 teams left for us to discuss. And the LA Chargers. Okay, well, going from the Rams to the Chargers, crosstown, from the team that gets attendance to the team that doesn't.
Yeah, one's playing in the Coliseum, the other in soccer arena, but
yep. But still, both insanely good teams that are going to compete for the championship.
And a pretty dedicated fan base as well.
Very true, very true. They may not be many, but they are loyal. And honestly, they might have just kept the same fan base from San Diego, probably. But the Chargers have a lot of talent. Phillip Rivers, Melvin Gordon, and of course, how can you forget about his backup, Austin Eckler? They're a 1-2 punch if I've ever seen one. Keenan Allen and Mike Williams are definitely good enough to be the top 2 wide receivers. They're really going to miss Tyrell Williams, though, at that third wide receiver slot. I guarantee it. But, you got Joey Bosa and Derwin James on defense. Wow, did those picks hit last year. Both of them were pretty much the top rookies, but neither of them won Rookie of the Year. They definitely improved with Jerry Tillery out of Notre Dame. That was their first pick. Nasir Adderley out of Delaware, getting him right after. I really like those 2 pickups. It's going to help what they really needed, which was defense. But my one concern is a wide receiver 3. Can the offense be as efficient? And those defensive players that they drafted really need to step up and, start day one.
Yeah, and a couple other pieces of the defense showing how good it is Melvin Ingram and Desmond King as well have been huge parts. Ingram off the edge as an edge rusher has been humongous for them, and Desmond King improving as a cornerback as well. This Chargers team is nothing to sneeze at, and my favorite offseason change of the year with them is the uniforms. They're bringing the powder blues as a primary uniform.
Okay.
So, in my opinion, best offseason move of the NFL was to bring in the powder blues.
Ooh, I like that. But I have them as one of my 4 Super Bowl contenders from the AFC. Them versus the Chiefs. 2 more incredible games that we get to witness this season. I'm really excited for that.
Can you have 2 12-win teams in the same division, or do you think they're more like 11-5, but they just do well in the playoffs?
I think we have 3 11-5 teams from this division with the Broncos too. This is going to be an insanely close division, more than I even realized when I looked at it first before the draft. But after the draft, this is a division that could be won with a coin flip. This triangle of the Chiefs, Chargers, and Broncos is nothing to laugh at. They're all for real. I think they all can find success. I think the Broncos lag just behind this year, but the Chiefs and Chargers are neck and neck. And that's going to be a fun race to watch for sure, starting week 1.
Absolutely. Down to the last couple. I don't even think you can hear it if you shake it. Oh, there it is.
That's right. 2 left, both for Miles. I am through all of my teams, and we're starting with, of course, our other least favorite team, the Green Bay Packers.
Yep. The Packers last year had a really rough season, 6-9-1. Obviously, the best arm in the league had a down year. Aaron Rodgers leading only the 23rd best offense in the NFL, 25 TDs. Isn't great for a player like him who's supposed to be in the conversation for one of the best quarterbacks to play the game. And he needs to step up this year and play like the best player on his team. Devontae Adams, though, is his standby threat in the receiving core right now. Second in the NFL in receiving touchdowns since 2016 to only Antonio Brown, and had his best year ever with 1,380 yards and 111 catches. That's going to be the key is Rodgers and Adams continuing to produce. And I'm going to kind of break the rules. We said we were trying to do only 3 offensive players, but the league's newest law firm of Marquez Valdez-Scantling and Equanimous St. Brown is the new duo to watch out for. The combo of good hands and speed can make, I think this offense could be as interesting and dynamic in terms of wide receivers as it was back in 2011 when they won the Super Bowl with Greg Jennings, Donald Driver, Jordy Nelson, and the rest of the crew. I think that as funny and strange as their names are, they're underrated in a lot of ways, and that could be a 1-2-3 punch between Adams, St. Brown, and Valdez-Scantling that could be really threatening to a lot of defenses. Speaking of defense, Blake Martinez was a huge producer for them on the inside as a linebacker, a run stuffer. He had the second most tackles in the NFL at 144 and 5 sacks, and then also had plenty of pass breakups too. And their defensive secondary has been improving. Jair Alexander played well in 13 games in his rookie year with the second most tackles on his team and 11 breakups and an interception. Just 22 years old. He's going to be good this next year. And Kyler Fackrell played super, super well as well in his third season with 10.5 sacks and 42 tackles. I think he's potentially the successor to Clay Matthews, as Clay has kind of fallen off in production and overall skill, in my opinion. I think Clay's time is kind of over, and I think Kyler Fackrell is a great option to really replace what Clay has always done.
Yeah, that's right. I think Clay Matthews is a big loss. One key player you didn't mention was Aaron Jones at running back. He's good, but that offensive line is a glaring weakness for this team. I think Valdez-Scantling and St. Brown are good for wide receiver 3, but they really need a wide receiver 2. I think, if they still had Randall Cobb, I would agree with you that this team has a solid offense, but, they didn't address their needs in the draft. They needed a wide receiver. There were tons of them available. They needed offensive line. There were tons of them available.
They did pick up a good center, Eldon Jenkins,
Yes.
out of Mississippi State. I think he was, behind Garrett Bradbury.
He'll help.
He'll be a good option. But you're right. They could definitely use more guards, more tackles, as many as they can find, because everyone on that offensive line seemed to be getting injured. If you looked at the low angle shots before a snap, it seemed like every single knee on that offense was wearing a brace. So it's definitely something that they will need to find ways to improve.
Yep, and I think that second linebacker slot is still a little bit weak after Blake Martinez. Rashawn Gary, out of Michigan for their first overall draft pick. He's a good player, but massive red flags for a bust. A super fast edge rusher that gets injured a lot. That's the classic case of, he's going to last 3 years. They also drafted Darnell Savage out of Maryland for a safety. I'm still not that high on their cornerbacks and safeties for their secondary. King and Jair Alexander are okay, but they really don't have a leader. They're all super young.
It is definitely a very young young defense, and I think it's going to be up to Tremont Williams as the veteran voice to try and bring them through along with Clay Matthews and lead a younger group. Tremont Williams, like I said, definitely still got some talent in him, but we'll see what they do. Dean Lowry, I think, as a defensive end as well. I think their defensive line rotation is solid.
Yeah.
So we'll see what this team can do. I think their ceiling is potentially, like I said, as high as 11-5 if Aaron Rodgers returns to form, because he makes everyone around him better.
Yeah, I'm saying probably 9-7. I'm not that sure about their head coaching hire, an offensive head coach when they struggle on defense. I know they want to please Aaron Rodgers, but I mean, they need help.
Joe Philbin doesn't exactly inspire the most confidence. I agree.
No. So yeah, I'm saying more 9-7, and of course the last name in the hat.
Carolina
Panthers. That's right.
Yep, and the Panthers, in my book, are just the middle team in this NFC South. I think they're kind of like the Falcons, where they have a lot of potential in the different areas, but random things can go wrong. I think Cam Newton obviously is the best dual threat quarterback in the league since Michael Vick, and he's going to need to continue to carry the offense. Last year had 500 yards rushing and 4 touchdowns, and then on the passing side did have a 3,400-yard season with 24 touchdowns. So combined, that's a solid number, and he's going to need to keep doing it. I think Christian McCaffrey has been phenomenal, and 1,000 yards rushing. If he could push that towards 1,300, 1,200, 1,300, something like that, and continue to push the receiving threat that he was as well with 800 yards receiving. He nearly had 2,000 scrimmage yards. Christian McCaffrey is a huge part of their offense, and that's going to be super, super key for them. As far as like kind of their off season, nothing like struck me in the face as being, wow, this is incredible. Although Bruce Irvin is a good pickup. They did drop Matt Khalil, who had a couple of years left on his contract. So their offensive line could potentially be a little suspect going into this season. But I think another veteran voice is Cameron Artis-Payne as another option in the backfield to support Christian McCaffrey. He's a great pass blocker. The team is good, but I don't see them making any special moves in the South unless Cam Newton just actually becomes Superman.
Yeah, I mean, the one thing that the Panthers need is a wide receiver one. When your running back leads the team in receiving yards, that's not a good sign for your wide receiver core.
Yeah, Kelvin Benjamin leaving the team
Yes.
is a tough loss to replace.
Yep. DJ Moore is okay as a wide receiver 2. Devin Funchess is a good wide receiver 3. Jarius Wright is a good 4. But
where's the one?
But where's the one? Yeah, exactly. Luke Kuechly on defense with Thomas Davis and Eric Reed at safety. They have good players, but I feel like they're 1 star on defense away. They're 1 star on offense away.
Yeah, and looking at their draft, I mean, they had the number 16 pick, no wide receiver there. They had the 37 pick, no wide receiver there. They don't pick a wide receiver until 237. That's the 7th round.
Yeah, you can't do that.
That's unfortunate to see. They picked up a good backup quarterback in the 3rd round, Will Grier.
Mm-hmm.
I think he
I
played
like that
very
pick.
well at West Virginia, and I think dropping to the 3rd round that far was actually pretty far for him when there's a lot of teams that could have used someone like him on their roster. So I think there's hope in the future, and if Cam Newton does something ridiculous and gets hurt, having Grier will be a really good option, but there's some missing pieces still.
Yep, I certainly agree. This is where, it's going to be like a 9-7. You're going to get like the 17th pick. You hope to get lucky on a defensive player next year, and then you get a really good wide receiver in the 2nd round. And I might say you're a Super Bowl contender. But as of now, what you thinking? Like 9-7, 10-6?
I think
Wild
probably
card?
less than that, 8-8.
Okay, not even a wild card there.
I think if it's between them and the Falcons in the South for pushing a wild card spot, it's going to go to the Falcons.
Okay. That's an interesting pick. That's certainly a coin flip to watch out for. But overall, I think this is going to be a very entertaining 2019 NFL season. There are a lot of good players to watch, as always, and of course, a lot of good teams to watch. I think this is one of the more competitive years that we're going to see. The Rams are definitely the top team, but there are probably 9 or 10 teams right behind them. So I think this is going to be a very good NFL season to watch for all of us.
Yeah. Let's get our way too early Super Bowl picks then.
Ooh, okay,
So,
okay.
as much as I'd love to be a homer and say the Vikings are going to do it, I think I, at this time, need to go with my gut, which is that the Rams will take the NFC. They will probably beat the Bears in the NFC Championship game. And I think in the AFC, it's going to be Chiefs and Patriots again in the championship. I hate to say it. I always hate to say it. But you can't argue with the best. And Bill Belichick is as good as it gets. Even though we talked about a lot of the problems their offense could have, I think as long as they make the playoffs, it's at that point, anyone facing them is an underdog. It doesn't matter their record. If they squeak in at 9-7 with a wild card spot, it doesn't matter to me who they're playing and if they're away. I think Bill Belichick and Tom Brady are the duo of the century of all time in terms of a coach and player talent. But I do think this year the Chiefs would take that matchup. So I think it would be Rams-Chiefs. And I give the edge to the Rams.
Okay. See, I'm much more of a underdog story rather than that. I'm much...
No money picks for you?
No, I would not put any money on this. I'm going to say for my AFC Championship that it's the Chargers versus the Ravens in my conference championship. And for the NFC, I will I'll do a throwback to 2009 with the Vikings versus Saints. Vikings get their revenge. Chargers beat the Ravens. Vikings-Chargers in the Super Bowl. I don't want to say anything about that because if it happens, holy crap. I don't want to pick a winner right now because, I mean, if I say Chargers, it makes me sad. If I say Vikings, I'm biased, so I'm not going to pick a winner of that. But, yeah, I think the Chiefs could just as easily make the Super Bowl. There are a lot of good teams this year, and, yeah, I mean, that's really all you can say. Miles, any last words?
I can't wait for football.
Oh, totally agreed. I mean, apparently the Flag Football League is coming up soon. The XFL is coming up soon. No, NFL 2019 is where it's at.
Exactly. Don't even care if it's preseason. Just give me football.
Indeed. So for Miles and I, that is the end of the first Shanked Field Goal podcast. I hope you all enjoy. And, yeah, have a good rest of your day and look forward to football. That's all we have for you today. See you later, everybody.
We'll see ya.